Hi everyone. Bear with me a sec, there's just a small amount of computer setup to be done. Yeah, go for it. Thanks, Henry. And you'll keep me to time, won't you? Can you do like a 3 or 4 minute? Okay, fantastic. Hi everyone, it's great to be here. Lovely to be invited. I'm your kind of palate cleanser for the day. I'm going to talk about some experiments that I've been doing with artificial intelligence and mapping. But I'm going to kind of handhold you through this whole process of kind of working out whether artificial intelligence can help us get some more value out of data. So my name's Steve Attewell. I'm the user experience lead at Ordnance Survey. So me and my team generally build the Chrome around the maps that you create. So when somebody needs to use that on a computer, then we'll build the application that kind of makes use of that for the user. I'm going to look quickly about like which AI am I talking about, because there's all sorts out there, and then I'm going to look at what we might use it for and show you some demos, and then we're going to do a little bit of a backtrack and go, well, how does it do some of the things that it can do? So without further ado, so I'm going to show you a demo, kind of, which should give you some kind of clue as to where we're going to go on this. So I've got a map here, which is using some AI to look at the video feed of me and track where my hand is going, which allows me as a developer to kind of pick up the map and move it around. So I've designed this interaction. This is not actually the main bit of the talk. We're going to get past this as another AI behind this, so don't get distracted too much by this. I've kind of attached different actions to each of the fingers. So the first one kind of grabs and moves around, the second one zooms in and out, and the next one rotates. And then if we go to a lumpy bit, the next one will kind of lean over and we can look around the map in that way. I'm not proposing this as a new way of looking around maps. If you ask somebody to come and use this map, it's a bit like saying, there's a violin, go and navigate a map with that, please. So this is an experiment to kind of see whether these new kind of machine learning AIs can be useful in navigating a map. But there's another AI behind this. Now, you've probably seen in the news quite a lot in the last couple of years, lots of news about large language models, and they're the things called ChatGPT, things that you can use online. So you can put those behind bits of software if you want to. So I can do things like this. Cafes. So the machine learning is kind of recognizing that I'm making a phone gesture with my hand, and then what's happening next is it's recognizing my voice, finding cafes, and then this is the part where a large language model, which I'll go into a little bit more detail later, is taking the word cafes. I've trained it to do lookups on OpenStreetMap data. So that's a base map of Ordnance Survey data, but the data that's been picked up is OpenStreetMap. And it's converting cafes, and it's going, right, how do I write a query to OpenStreetMap to get some cafes? Cafes that are close to the train station. So one of the things is when it knows, so it's interpreted there what I mean by close, and it looks like maybe 1 or 200 meters, something like that. And it'll interpret anything you say and try its best to convert that into a query to get something out of OpenStreetMap. So I can say, I'm hungry and I want something to eat near the train station, but I don't like fast food. So this is where you pray to the demo gods, and it doesn't quite work. I'm hungry and I don't like fast food. So maybe that's slightly too complex for it. Okay, so you're kind of, so we've missed out the close to, but we can see there's restaurants and there's kind of no McDonald's and things like that in there. So that bit of the application uses a thing called a large language model. Now, you've probably heard them and maybe used them as ChatGPT. In fact, so these chat models, I've got that's the interface on the left-hand side that you might be familiar with if you've used one. It's a chat interface, and you're chatting with an AI. Can I see a show of hands for anybody that's actually used one of these? And it'll be ChatGPT, Google. Okay, loads and loads of people. So there's only a few who haven't. Okay, so what's happening there is that there's this huge AI behind this, and the chat window is just one way of communicating with that device. So what you can do as a developer is use those large language models that are behind those kind of chat windows as software components. And so to give you an example, let's just open another experiment that I've been noodling around with. Here we go. So this doesn't have any of the hand wavy stuff, and is a bit more of a traditional map. So let's just look at supermarkets, buildings within, what did I say, 200 meters of a supermarket, buildings further than 200 meters away from a supermarket. I realise this bit isn't the most exciting bit of this demo. And I might then choose to do residential areas. And you'll see I've misspelt that. Now that was deliberate, definitely, because it'll go back and it'll still find me residential areas, because it kind of assumes that because it's finding things on maps, that's probably what I meant. I'm going to delve into a little bit more detail on this in a second, but what's happening here, I don't know if you can see that at the bottom, maybe you can't. There's a part of that query, this is an OpenStreetMap query that's, if you know Overpass, it's an API that lets you grab data out of OpenStreetMap. And I'm asking the AI to write that part of a query. And when you start writing kind of more tricky queries, like buildings within 200 meters of a supermarket, they're not that fun to write. I mean, I didn't know how to write them when I started, and kind of training an AI to write a good query was quite a long and tedious exercise. But once you've done it and you can train it on a few things, like it's basically translating what I put in that box into a piece of text, which is a query for a database. Now, if you've got a phone, you can grab this QR code, because there's kind of a similar version, and I'll come back to that screen in a second. I'll show you what it does first. So there's a freely available AI that I've released that you can get to, which is called OpenStreetMap Query, and you can go to the ChatGPT website and search the different models that they've got there, and it's called OpenStreetMap Query. So I can kind of, when I say, let's zoom in on that a little bit, which I can't do, hold on. When I say, fast food near the train station, I've written fast food near the train station at the bottom there. Let's have, okay, Southampton. So I've trained it to ask you for a place if you haven't specified one. And in the background of that other, more fancy map that I showed you, it's literally doing that. That's something that's been trained to be, I've kind of put it on rails so that anything you ask it, more often than not, it will try and write you a query to OpenStreetMap to find those features that you've asked for. This one kind of is trained to give you a little introduction, then the code, and then ask you to kind of go to Overpass Turbo, and then you can enter that into a website and then receive back the data. So let me just give you one more thing of that. So I've got another one of power lines that So it can do a certain amount of geospatial queries, but you'll hit the limit of its skill set quite quickly. But again, if you're searching for data and you're using OpenStreetMap, this might be a good way. It should be freely available. You shouldn't have to pay for it, I think, but you do need a ChatGPT subscription. You can get to this, and it might get you started. And if you use it and you get an error, shove the error back in that box at the bottom, and it'll try and fix it for you. Sometimes, because it's on Rails, you can write random stuff, and sometimes it comes back with a query. This time it hasn't. It said, "I'm really sorry to hear that your foot hurts." So this is an example of trying to put something like this on Rails and then it becoming errant and not giving you what you want. Now, within the mapping applications that I've built, it's much, much easier to totally focus the AI to only deliver you these kind of queries back again and never anything else. So I'll leave that up there just for a second, but you can come and grab me later if you want to go there. How long have I got? 5 minutes, fantastic. Okay, so we've seen we're all sitting on this like gold mine of data, and there are ways of exposing the value of that data. And we've seen a couple of examples of how you can just go and grab some data. So that's what I've generally been looking at, is how can I take the natural language queries and try and grab useful data out of complex databases. I've done it with OpenStreetMap. There are some other demos that I've put online, getting stuff out of Ordnance Survey data as well. So, but in the future, I think we're also going to be looking at using artificial intelligences to then make conclusions and give us advice and guidance on particular scenarios. I'm going to try and give you kind of a rough demo of what that might look like. So let me take you through this. So this is like pure, plain ChatGPT. This is what you would sign up for and start using. So if I say, when is best to fly my kite? So this first example is using its generic knowledge. It's trawled the internet. It's stolen all the information that's out there already, and it's got an understanding of when is a good time to fly a kite. And it will mention, like, ideally wind speeds, not too gusty, you don't want it raining and things like that. So that's using its generic knowledge, which isn't that useful. There is, if I grab, so I'm going to get today's weather data. If I turn on pretty print, it still doesn't look that pretty, does it? But this is some JSON data of the 10-day weather forecast from today from a free web service. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm kind of using this as a bit of an equivalent of geospatial data. It's just some complex data that's in a computer somewhere. So I can say, here's the 10-day forecast. When is best to fly my kite? Let's paste all that data in. Now it's got some context. You might hear the term RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. Basically, it means you're going to give it some relevant data that's now that it couldn't possibly know from its memory, and you're going to ask it your question again, and it's going to give you a better answer. So now it's given me some options with different wind speeds, and it's saying that given its knowledge of when's best to fly a kite, September the 10th, 12th, and 13th, because they've all got strong winds and no rain. But I might have some domain knowledge about my kite, right? So that's quite a generic answer with the current current data and a relevant, sensible answer. But my kite might work best in winds that are about 20 to 25 kilometers per hour, and like 30 miles an hour might be too strong. So my kite works best in winds of 20 kilometers per hour. So hopefully it's now going to take that into consideration with its answer and give me another answer. I know this is a slightly convoluted example, but I'm trying to go through like what these LLMs can do without any information, like the generic knowledge. Then if you give them data like I have done in my previous demos, you're getting data out of a database, some relevant data. You can get them to go and call that data and give it to themselves to use to give you more advice. But also, you can give it a scenario. You might give it a scenario of, well, here's all the roadworks that are going on this week. This is what the traffic lights. This is where my teams are located and when they've got free space. So when would be the best time to do the roadworks on this pipe in this area? And I think that kind of generally, the world's going to move towards using artificial intelligences to get data out, and then they're going to start making conclusions for us. Now, I don't think I've got time to go into whether that's the end of the world as we know it, because whether we should the next questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves are, is that a good or a bad idea? And what happens with that tool, and should we rely on that kind of information? As excited as I am about all of these kind of possibilities and like building cool tools, there's huge risks involved, obviously, in relying on data, because the logic that I give to the artificial intelligence is only as good as everything that I've thought of. I can only put it on a certain amount of rails. So that's actually the end of my presentation. If there's any questions, we've got a couple of minutes left, and I'm happy to take any questions or show you anything else that I went through. Or have I completely blown you all away? Yes, hello.
Hi, Steve. My question is, my worry is that the data within OpenAI isn't always correct. If you wouldn't mind going back to the slide that you have with your kite flying.
Oh, yes.
With the data.
Mm-hmm.
That one. So above it says September the 13th, the wind speed is 27.7 kilometers per hour. But then down below, it now says the wind speed is 20.9.
Yeah.
What happened? Which is correct? You fed the data in. So I do worry that sometimes the data isn't always right, and we've seen court cases where prosecutors have used data generated from OpenAI, which turns out to be completely incorrect and fraudulent. So how much is that a concern, that the data might not be correct?
It's a huge concern. It's a massive concern. So throughout all the experiments that I've done, you're constantly fighting against it kind of making hallucinations and doing weird things that you haven't asked it to do, or the whole kind of general idea is that you're trying to put an AI on rails, and they don't really like being put on rails at the moment. So you have to do other things in order to put on rails. So that's why that example that I gave you is kind of, that might happen in the future, and that's the way things are going to go. And I know that people are trying to kind of build scenarios, bunch lots of data together and get it to make conclusions, which is why I was very clear that you need to be very, very careful if you're going to do that. I will say that this is the worst it's ever going to be. I mean, at the moment, there are tinkerers like myself going around like building random things and kind of kicking the tires on stuff like this. And you would hope that they're all aware of the dangers in relying on that kind of information. One of the other demos that I've built uses Ordnance Survey data. It's just a data retrieval system, but what it does is after the AI gives it a list of things that should be retrieved, it actually, there's another program runs, takes that and checks whether that's true or not, and filters out all the rubbish and the hallucinations, and then goes and gets the correct data. So there are things that you can do to mitigate against it, but you certainly have to be aware of it. Yes, hello.
I have a question about data point, and whether
Let's take the first question. In a generic sense, like when I have conversations with people about AI, they think that that is going to be the solution to their data problems. And it isn't. You still have to have really good data. There are ways in which AI can help you cleanse your data, and it's like an active field of having AI look through your raw data set and spot things which it thinks, or rank things which it thinks are incorrect, and look at relationships. So that is possible. But the kind of general gist of things is you need your data as well formatted and as well schemed for an AI as you would a human being, because we almost kind of work the same way. And when your data is difficult to fathom as a human, or if you've looked at a data set and you've thought that's difficult for me to understand, your AI will have that trouble as well. And the last time I flew my kite, it was on the beach.
Your AI kite, when you did that weather forecast, was that for a beach or was it for a grain of sand?
The forecast data here, that was for Eastleigh now.
Okay, but it's a precision. I'm interested in the precision. So how many decimal places were your latitude on it? Because I think that's another interesting point around.
It was so that weather service takes a latitude and longitude of kind of about Eastleigh town centre. That's the example that I've given you. Any other questions? Yes.
Did you do any sort of fine-tuning of the model? You said you sort of trained it to produce the overpass queries. Was that actually fine-tuning the model itself, or providing a specific set of persistent prompts that would encourage it to always try and produce overpass queries whenever it could?
Oh, there's a man that knows some AI stuff. It was not fine-tuning, no. Although I think it would work better if I did do that. So I stuffed the prompt, the system prompt, with a load of guidance, which also could work very, very well indeed, but it's not sustainable in the long term. Sorry about that, everybody else. There was a deep moment there where we connected on AI. Anyone else? Okay, right. Thank you very much for listening. I think that's my time up. Cheers. Thank you.